You believe your emotions are your own. You believe that the sudden flush of anger when you are insulted, the hollow ache of anxiety before a meeting, or the warm rush of validation when you are praised are organic, spontaneous proofs of your humanity. You treat these feelings as internal weather, unpredictable storms that simply happen to you, forces of nature that you must weather until the sun returns. You are wrong. In the high towers of influence, where the air is thin and the stakes are absolute, emotion is not weather. It is currency. It is a resource to be mined, refined, and weaponized. And while you're drowning in the noise of your own reactions, there are those who are standing on dry land, watching you thrash, calculating exactly how long it will take for you to tire. This is the first lesson the world's most effective leaders hide from you. Emotional control is not about peace. It is about leverage. If you were to strip away the polished suits, the press releases, and the practiced smiles of history's most formidable figures, you would find a cold, terrifying stillness at their core. It is a stillness that Niccolò Machiavelli observed 5 centuries ago as he walked the marble halls of Florence, watching the Medici rise and fall. He saw what you refused to see. He saw that the men who held power were not the ones who felt the most deeply. They were the ones who had learned to murder their own impulses in service of a higher outcome. Machiavelli watches you now from the shadows of history with that same clinical detachment. He sees you scrolling through your feed, reacting to headlines designed to enrage you. He sees you arguing with a partner, baited into a fight you promised yourself you wouldn't have. He sees you walking into a negotiation, desperate to be liked, terrified of silence. To him, you are an open book written in a language you haven't bothered to learn. You are predictable because you are reactive. The real cost of emotional control, the price that true leaders pay, is the death of the natural self. To lead, to truly influence, one must cease to be a person and become a vessel. When a crisis hits, you panic, the leader observes. When an insult is thrown, you defend, the leader analyzes. This asymmetry is the foundation of all power dynamics. Think of the last time you felt truly powerless in a conversation. Maybe it was with a boss who refused to raise their voice, or a lover who met your screaming with icy silence. You felt your chest tighten, your words stumbling over each other, your desperation rising. Why? Because you were feeding them energy and they were giving nothing back. You were fighting a mirror. This is the dark mechanics of the void. By withholding reaction, the leader forces you to project your own insecurities into silence. They don't need to control you actively. They simply need to control themselves, and you will do the rest. You will fill the silence with your fears. You will negotiate against yourself. You will dismantle your own position just to get a reaction, any reaction, from the statue in front of you. This is what Machiavelli meant when he spoke of the prince's need to be a great simulator and dissimulator. It is not just about lying with words. It is about lying with effect. It is the ability to feel fear and show boredom. It is the ability to feel rage and show grace. But the cost is staggering. To achieve this, you must sever the connection between your nerve endings and your face. You must endure the friction of burning emotion inside your gut without letting a single spark escape your eyes. Most people cannot afford this cost. It is too painful. It feels inauthentic. You want to be yourself, and so you surrender your power for the comfort of expression. You choose the relief of screaming over the utility of silence. But the architects of society, the marketers, the politicians, the negotiators, they have paid the bill. They understand that human beings are not rational agents. They are emotional engines. If they can control the fuel, your hope, your fear, your vanity, they can drive you anywhere. Look closer at the structure of your day. The notification that buzzes in your pocket is not a random event. It is a dopamine trigger engineered by behavioral psychologists to break your focus. The outrage you feel at the evening news is not a moral awakening. It is a cortisol spike manufactured to keep you watching. The validation you seek from your peers is not social connection. It is a biological lever that can be pulled to make you conform. You're living in a Skinner box, a cage of stimulus and response, running on a wheel of emotion that you did not build. And standing outside the glass, watching the wheel turn, are the Machiavellians. They are not smarter than you. They are not more talented than you. They simply understand one brutal truth that you ignore. He who cannot control his own emotional state is destined to be a servant of those who can. The leader hides this cost because if you knew how mechanical the process was, the spell would break. They hide the fact that their empathy is often a calculated strategy, that their anger is a theatrical performance chosen for effect, and that their silence is a trap. They want you to believe they are natural leaders, born with a gravity you lack. But gravity is just physics, and influence is just psychology. As you sit there, perhaps feeling a flicker of defensiveness or a dawn of realization, understand that this feeling, too, is data. The sensation of being exposed is uncomfortable. Your instinct is to look away, to return to the comfortable illusion that your choices are free and your feelings are sacred. But Machiavelli would tell you to hold the gaze. He would tell you that the discomfort you feel is the cost of waking up. The strings are visible now, if only for a moment, the thin, translucent wires running from your heart to their hands. You have seen the architecture of the cage. The question is no longer about how they built it. The question is about the mechanics of the lock. How do they do it? How do they read the micro-expressions on your face before you even know what you're feeling? How do they plant a thought in your mind and make you believe it was yours? The mechanism is colder than you can imagine. You walk through the world believing you are a mystery. You tell yourself that your thoughts are private, that your soul is a fortress, and that no one can truly know what lies behind your eyes. But to the student of dark psychology, to the Machiavellian observer, you are not a fortress. You are a house made of glass. The second great secret that leaders hide is that reading people requires no intuition, no empathy, and certainly no magic. It requires only biology and pattern recognition. The mechanism of social influence is built on a humiliating truth. Humans are painfully, tragically predictable. Machiavelli wrote that men are generally ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, and covetous. He did not say this to be cruel. He said it because it was the data set he used to predict the future. When you understand that people are driven by self-interest and fear, their actions stop being surprising and start being mathematical. Consider the mechanics of a conversation. When you speak to someone of influence, a master negotiator or a charming manipulator, you think you are having an exchange of ideas. You are not. You are undergoing an autopsy. While you are busy thinking about what to say next, they are watching the dilated pupils of your eyes that signal desire. They are tracking the microtension in your jaw that signals resistance. They are noting the way your feet point toward the door, betraying your desire to escape. You broadcast your vulnerabilities on a frequency you cannot hear, but they are tuned into it perfectly. The core mechanic they use against you is mirroring and validation. It is the oldest trick in the dark psychological handbook, yet works on the smartest minds in the room. You crave to be understood. It is a hunger that gnaws at the human heart. The manipulator feeds this hunger. They lower their voice to match yours. They adopt your posture. They repeat your last 3 words back to you in the form of a question. This is not connection. This is calibration. By mimicking your external state, they bypass your critical defenses and gain access to your internal trust. You lower your guard because you see yourself in them. You think, finally, someone who gets me. But they don't get you. They have simply scanned your surface and projected a reflection back at you. You are falling in love with your own echo. Once trust is established, the law of reciprocity kicks in. This is the unseen chain of social debt. If they give you a compliment, a small favor, or a piece of confidential information, your brain screams that you must give something back. It is a biological imperative evolved to keep tribes together. The Machiavellian exploits this ruthlessly. They give you a penny of validation to extract a pound of compliance. They confess a fake weakness to get you to reveal a real one. And once you reveal that real weakness, your fear of failure, your jealousy of a colleague, your need for status, the trap snaps shut. That information is the lever. Emotional control allows them to detach from the moral weight of this manipulation. Where you see a friend, they see a set of inputs and outputs. Machiavelli advised the prince that it is better to be feared than loved, but he also knew that being useful is the ultimate camouflage. The most dangerous people in your life are often the most helpful because their help buys them real estate in your mind. Let's go deeper into the mechanics of the group. Why do you follow the crowd? Why do you feel that sickness in your stomach when you stand alone? Social influence operates on the heuristic of safety. The herd survives, the lone wolf dies. The masters of influence understand that you do not make decisions based on facts. You make decisions based on social proof. If they can make it appear that everyone agrees, your brain will rewrite reality to fit the consensus. This is why laugh tracks exist in sitcoms. This is why political rallies use planted applause. They are hacking your biological hardware, bypassing your logic circuits to trigger the primitive join or die reflex. Machiavelli watches the mob with a sneer. He sees that the individual may be rational, but the crowd is a beast without a brain. The leader does not try to reason with the beast. He steers it. He uses fear to herd it into a corner and hope to lead it out. Notice how every successful marketing campaign, every political movement, every cult follows the same three-step algorithm. Diagnosis of pain. They tell you that you're broken, unsafe, or incomplete. They validate your secret suffering, the external enemy. They point to a cause for your pain, something outside of yourself that you can hate. A rival, a system, a group. The savior solution. They offer themselves or their product as the only path to salvation. You react to this sequence because you are wired to. You are a pattern-seeking machine, and they're the pattern makers. The real cost of this knowledge is isolation. Once you see the mechanics, once you see the strings of reciprocity, the fake mirroring, the manufactured social proof, you can never unsee them. You sit at a dinner party and you don't see friends laughing. You see status signaling. You don't hear a debate. You hear ego defense mechanisms clashing like rusty gears. The world becomes a clockwork orange, ticking away in a horrifying mechanical rhythm. But there is a reason leaders hide this view from you. It is not just to protect their power. It is because if you realized how easily you are read, how simply you are steered, and how mechanical your free will actually is, you would stop playing the game. You would stop reacting. And if you stop reacting, you become dangerous. The Machiavellian knows that the only thing harder to control than a wild beast is a silent man. A man who watches back. A man who understands that his emotions are tools, not truths. You have seen the cage, part 1. You have now seen the gears that operate the lock, part 2. The final step is the most difficult. It is the step where you pick up the key. It requires you to do the one thing that feels most unnatural to the human animal, to stop feeling and start calculating, to step out of the river of emotion and stand on the bank. The moment you truly wake up, the world does not become brighter. It becomes quieter. You have seen the strings in part 1. You have dismantled the gears in part 2. Now, you stand in the wreckage of your old worldview, holding the heavy, cold realization that freedom is not given, it is taken. This is the final awakening. This is the moment you stop being a character in someone else's play and start writing your own script. The ultimate secret of emotional control, the one that Machiavelli whispered about but never fully wrote down, is that it is not about suppression. It is not about turning yourself into a robot. It is about transmutation. It is the alchemical process of taking the raw, chaotic energy of your emotions and forging it into steel. Imagine you are back in that high-pressure room. The insult lands. The betrayal is revealed. The old you, the sleeping you, would have flared up like a match, burning bright and hot, only to be extinguished by the superior wind of the manipulator. But the new you does something terrifying. You do nothing. You find a gap. Between the stimulus and your response, there is a fraction of a second. In the biological animal, this gap is microscopic, bridged instantly by instinct. But in the master, this gap is an abyss. In that infinite space of silence, you arrest the emotion. You look at the anger rising in your throat, and you acknowledge it, not as a command, but as a suggestion. You ask yourself a single Machiavellian question. Does showing this emotion serve my end? If the answer is no, you let the feeling die in the dark. You present a face of absolute, unreadable calm. This is the superpower of the void. When you refuse to react to a manipulator, you break the circuit of their power. They expect resistance. You give them air. They expect fear. You give them neutrality. Watch their eyes when you do this. You will see a flicker of panic. For the first time, they are not fighting you. They are fighting the silence you have created. You have become a mirror that reflects nothing but their own desperation. But the awakening goes deeper. You realize that strategic vulnerability is more powerful than genuine vulnerability. Machiavelli advised the prince to be both the fox and the lion. The lion uses force. The fox uses snares. Emotional control is the way of the fox. You learn to curate your displays of humanity. You might choose to show anger, not because you have lost control, but because the situation requires a display of dominance to reset the boundaries. You might choose to show warmth, not because you need validation, but because you need to build a bridge of trust to cross later. This is what scares people about this level of psychology. The idea that authenticity is a tactical choice. Critics will call this fake. They will call it sociopathic. Let them. They're the ones still trapped in the cage, thrashing against the bars of their own impulses. They confuse impulsivity with honesty. They believe that vomiting every feeling they have is a virtue. You know the truth. Unbridled emotion is just noise. Intentional emotion is a signal. The real cost of this awakening is a profound, permanent solitude. You can never go back to the naive comfort of blind trust. You will sit among friends and see the status games they play. You will listen to lovers and hear the transactional nature of their affection. You will watch politicians and see the calculated cadence of their outrage. You are no longer part of the herd. You are the shepherd, or perhaps the wolf watching from the treeline. It is a lonely height, this peak of control. But the air is clear here. Machiavelli stands beside you now, no longer a ghost, but a peer. He reminds you that the world is not a nursery. It is an arena. In this arena, the most dangerous weapon is not the one you hold in your hand, but the mind that cannot be rattled. So how do you live now? You live as a ghost in the machine. You walk through the chaotic storms of modern life, the social media outrage, the corporate politics, the relational dramas, untouched. You observe. You calculate. You wait. When you speak, your words have weight because they are rare. When you move with purpose because you're not being pushed. You have reclaimed the sovereignty of your own nervous system. The next time you feel the heat of emotion rising, fear, jealousy, rage, do not suppress it. Do not shame yourself for having it. Welcome it as fuel. Then cool it down in the reactor of your mind until it is safe to handle. Look at the person trying to provoke you. Smile, not with warmth, but with the knowing glint of someone who has seen the code. They are playing checkers, reacting to every move on the board. You're playing chess. You have already won, not because you are smarter, but because while they were busy feeling, you were busy thinking. The cage is open. The lock is broken. You are free. But remember, freedom is cold. Wrap yourself in it.